And just to add, obviously we've talked about interest rates, we've talked about the construction. The other thing is the land. Obviously the land is shooting up in price. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if anyone here doesn't know, buying something next year is going to be more expensive than this year. Just my opinion. But the reality is you're not going to be able to recreate what we've currently got out here for the same price. That's the reality. Many of these jobs, I think someone on the last panel was saying, you know, you've got to plan these things 5, 8 years in advance. So many of the jobs that are coming to market now, as we are with Marina Point, that was, you know, we'd bought that land way before we'd even started some of the construction prior to COVID. So now we're in a post-COVID world, but obviously we've still got contracts and pro formas that relate to before COVID. If we were to try and replicate that job today, I would suggest it would probably be 30 to 35% more expensive to do it now than what it was when we did it.
Marina Point is definitely a beautiful project. I really enjoy looking at it and seeing it get built.
Thank you.
One thing I will say, I don't know the site and the acreage size, but you do have some big towers there, which with what I would expect would be a high density count. Did you do anything specifically through a rezoning process when you say you planned in advance? Did you go through a plan development or do anything in order to raise the density intensity?
Yes, we did. So, you know, the funny thing is when I first got involved in the project a few years ago, of course, everyone told me it was south of Gandhi, and I, not from being from around this area, it's like, what's south of Gandhi? What's that got to do with it? It's South Tampa, as far as I was concerned. But yes, it had a history of being a failed development many years ago. But obviously it's 52 acres is what it actually is, the whole of the West Shore Marina District. The towers we're building are on a peninsula, that's only 6 acres. But yes, we consistently have to, or say consistently, we had to redo our incremental plans, etc., to ensure that we had the allowable density.
Now, did you have any issues with the height of those buildings, or did you reach that ceiling on the maximum height that you had there?
It's an ongoing conversation, but yes, absolutely.
All right, we would always love to build higher and have a higher density. So there's always very creative ways to go about that can actually lessen the impact on the environment. And that's one thing that we all need to think about. Now, does anyone have any information in regards to more sustainable building and building greener futures?
Well, I think with the material issues that we're seeing, lots of ideas that we have, it's going to take some time to come to fruition. And I think some of the things that we're doing is early on investigation, having contractors who understand the markets and materials and what's available, because we can design some really beautiful items and we do some really nice work. But if you can't get the materials and it can't be financed and you can't afford the property to do it, all of it's for naught. And theory's great, but we're not sitting inside a theory. We're sitting inside of a building that got built by guys who did the labor, by someone who designed it, by someone who put the capital in. So all those items, as we see more and more green energy items, some of those things have come out of and become probably more commonplace because of what has happened with the last 24 months. You see a lot more of the HVAC systems that were almost exclusive for healthcare become more for commercial and adding those costs. But as those sustainable items come to fruition, Florida's a different market than Seattle. It's a different market than New York. So the items that we need to do from a green standpoint and sustainability are completely different than what you need to do in an environment where it's cold and rainy for 10 months. London's not Tampa. So you've got to be very specific in your geography when you're doing those things. And when you're working in multiple environments, making sure you've got partners who understand that and investment partners that are willing to put that dollar in. Long-term owners, people who are facility folks, not just, someone's going to buy it and then flip it a year after occupancy. So it's having the right mix of the team that's willing to take those opportunities and put those materials into place. Because we're seeing material things that we wouldn't have thought would have been put in place, but because of items not available, not on the shelf, you can't get. We have contractors traveling all parts of the country to get materials to escort them here to make sure they're completing those deadlines. on green materials. So I think those will continue to be a challenge and an opportunity for the folks who are thinking outside the proverbial box.
Just one quick thing you hit right on the head, Rob, is when you go to a sustainable building, and a lot of it is incorporated into more of the standard materials, the green concepts, the sustainable concepts are more standard, but when you design at a high level of sustainability, you close the spec a little bit, and you're being very specific in the spec. Well, one of the ways to combat the availability issues right now is to make sure you have an open enough spec to be able to pivot on your materials. So when you hone in on those sustainable goals, it's a challenging space to be in, to be able to get all that with all the availability issues right now. It really is.
And I would like to add that there actually is some creative ideas out there, one of which Advanced Engineering actually utilized lately, and we had a unanimous vote in a planned development rezone, and everyone was on board with it and very excited about the lessening of impact that we created with this development, and it actually helped the investors. Yes, they had to spend $6,000 per unit, but for that site, we were able to bump up the density from the allowable 85 dwelling units all the way up to 202. So there is methods that are out there. You just have to be creative and find the ones that work. And sometimes it's not the flashiness that just lower the cost of electricity. So there's a lot of different programs and things out there that we all need to keep our eyes open for. And I believe we had a very great panel, and I do want to touch base on each of you. What is your favorite projects that you have seen out there? It can be your very own Marina Point that everyone I know loves, or some other.
We bought the ugliest building in downtown Tampa. That was my announcement after we bought it, which is the Park Tower building, the old skyscraper. It was built in the 70s. It's a 36-story building, and a lot of people said that the best thing about being in it and occupying, this is before we bought it, was that you didn't have to look at it, because if you were inside, you couldn't see it. We put about 18 million of capital improvements into the building. Brand new fitness center, brand new conference center, a play zone, a spin room. We have 24/7 concierge, a series of restaurants, a nail salon, bank branches, et cetera, et cetera. And now we're finding that that has paid off huge, because going back to this discussion about office versus home, it turns out that the most amenitized buildings are far outpacing the buildings without amenities. Employers want employees back in the office. They desperately do, but they're terrified about forcing them because the job market is so tight. So in effect, what they're doing is they're upscaling their office space to the best-in-class buildings, the ones with the most amenities. So we're very proud now of that building. We're 96% leased. In the middle of a COVID storm, we actually increased our occupancy.
Yeah, so for us, it's really, I talked earlier about the partnership we developed with the faith-based community. And interesting enough, one of the pastors, he's an entrepreneur in himself. And we're excited to be partnering with him. He developed a fixed wireless solution. So we talked about satellite earlier. There's a lot of complementary solutions to bring high-speed internet to each of your homes. In this case, this individual's doing a fixed wireless solution. And being able to partner with him, he's, and you think about sustainability, going to more of the ESG social aspect of our communities and participating in that to be able to bring 100 meg by 100 meg download, upload speeds to areas that have never seen really any internet. They're still on dial-up through this partnership with this pastor. So that's the exciting project that we're doing. We're deploying that in parts, some of the area right here in District 5, the school district here in Tampa. Very underserved area, partnering with him to bring fiber to these locations where he's partnering with churches to put up towers to deliver this fixed wireless solution at a very low cost to the community. So that's pretty exciting for us.
Of course, I'm going to pick my own projects. The ones over my right and left shoulder, the Edition and the Asher, not just because they're big and I think they're beautiful. They are beautiful. We're about finishing both of them. But I've been around long enough, and a lot of us have been around long enough to where this was all pixie dust. This was not going to happen. We read about it, and then we started to believe it. And then SVP started to come together, and we were here the whole time, So just watching that develop over the last decade or more, and now here we are ready to turn those over. We're sitting in an office building that we didn't build, but we take space in, and looking at those two projects every day. Really proud of them, and just proud of actually Tampa, just knowing what the sentiment was 10 years ago, and if this was really going to happen, and here it is, and it's happened, and we're turning it over, and it's beautiful. It's really exciting to be part of it.
Yeah, I'm going to lead on from that. See, I think that I'm most excited about the I guess you call them the new wave of buildings that are sort of changing the skyline really of Tampa and Tampa Bay. So not just this side, but over the other side as well. And that's buildings that are already coming to fruition now. But if you see what's coming in the next few years, I'm sure you've seen some of the plans of what's happening in some of the buildings in St. Pete as well as here in Tampa. They add a nice little touch of modern to the beautiful Tampa landscape, and that's what I'm most impressed by.
Well, I'm going to say BTI's tower on the water because I see it when I'm on the water.
I owe you for that.
Just don't. It's all good. We're heavily involved with Robles Park, City of Tampa's housing authority that was blighted. If you've ever been there, it'll break your heart. We're very blessed. Everybody in this room, everybody who came here today, everybody who drove here today is blessed. If you believe you're blessed, you are. If you don't believe you're blessed, you still are. And those people live in some of the worst cases of abject poverty. And so we're basically taking that entire area, the Zion Cemetery. We're going to have an opportunity to bring infrastructure to people who have no access to infrastructure. And the first phase, which we were just awarded, is going to be the infrastructure for healthcare, for education, actually navigators who are going to be part of helping those individuals find services. When a mother is fearful for letting her kid play outside without gun violence or crime, this isn't Chicago, this is Tampa. And it's real. And that's just one step of the things we're doing along with workforce housing. I'm very passionate about workforce housing and the fact that so many of the folks that are first-year teachers, first-year professionals, folks that are moving to our area, healthcare providers that aren't doctors, those people still need housing of quality. And so being able to find that somewhere, again, having choices. You can have that $1 million penthouse, but having something that a person who's making $35,000 a year as a first-year teacher can have a house of their own, whether it's an apartment or whether it's a single family. So that's one of the things that we're doing, and I think one of the first things is going to be making sure that infrastructure is in place so that those families have a place to belong, so that they have quality of housing, and they have services they don't currently have access to. So I'm a little passionate about it, but I still like BTI from the water standpoint, so it's beautiful. So.
Well, I really enjoy the BTI towers as well, and hopefully one of my clients will bring me on their yacht and so I can see it. And I will say, touching back, Mayor Jane Castor, she actually has an incredible track record from what I understand, and that she reduced crime by 70%. So that's just kind of touching back to your topic there. And as for me, myself, I do have to follow in the shoes of everyone else and say that my own very project that my team is working on is my current favorite, and it's actually named after two of our staff. It's called the Avalon, and it's currently 3 stories, and we're looking to make it 5 stories. I spoke with the city of Clearwater, and they're with us in increasing the density by double, and we're looking for investors to add 2 more floors to it. If you would like to go to our table, I can show you a VR headset and immerse yourself in the actual building so you can see what it's like. And we all appreciate everyone here, and we thank you for your time.
All right, big round of applause for second panel. Thank you all so much.